Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through a tutorial on how to do my contoured mask. So you have here your Pellon 926 interfacing. It is non-fusible, it is non-woven, and you can see here that it has 5 darts on it. I have not cut any of the darts. The first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to sew along this line. I'm going to do a zigzag. I'm going to do it 3 millimeters wide, and I'm going to do it 1 millimeter in length. So I have zigzagged along this line, and next I'm going to actually cut it out. So I'm going to cut along here. Okay, so I cut that piece off. If I open it up, you can see that you know, it's not perfect, but whenever I get all the pieces together, that's not going to matter. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the bottom line here, the top line here on both sides. Okay, so I have those cut, and for each of these I'm going to take the piece that's curved and I'm going to pull it down until it matches up with the side. So it's going to be curved just a little bit, and then I'm going to sew along here for each one of these. So the bottom will actually come up and the top will actually come down. I've done the first 2 seams on the sides, and so I pulled this one up and sewed. Again, I did a zigzag 3 millimeter in width and 1 millimeter in length, and then I did that along this one too. So now I'm going to sew the other side. So now I have sewn all of my seams. I'm going to cut away this excess here, so it's going to be a nice round mask, and then I'm going to flip it inside out. For the next step, I've cut a 9 centimeter wire, and I'm going to be placing it inside the mask. This is going to be for the bridge of the nose. I want to place it in just enough so that whenever I do the edges, my needle is not going to hit the wire. So it'll probably be about 3/4 of an inch in. Okay, so I have sewn in my wire. I did a zigzag, but I made sure that the ends had some extra thread in there so that the wire doesn't slide. So now I'm going to move on to sew the lining and the exterior. So here I have my exterior piece and I have my lining piece. I'm going to sew them, or they've been cut out just like the interfacing, but I'm going to sew these a little bit differently. I'm going to be single stitching each one of the darts on these. So I'm going to be folding them in half and sewing a single stitch along this line. And after that, I'll fold this in half and sew a single stitch along this dart, do the other side, and then I'll fold this in half and sew a single stitch along this line as well. Then I'll take this on. So now I have seam 2 folded over, and I'm getting ready to do a single stitch along this line. So there's seam 2A and seam 2B. I already have seam 1 sewn here, and next I'm going to fold over seam 3A and seam 3B and do the same thing. Okay, so I have sewn all of my seams here. This is seam 1. I'm actually going to open up this seam, but the other ones I'm going to leave as they are. They're fine. Just make sure they're all pointing in the correct direction. I usually leave my seam 2 flipped up and my seam 3 flipped down, but I'm going to cut this now. Okay, so I cut open seam A, or seam 1, and now I'm going to flip it inside out. So now this is going to be the exterior of the mask, and then here's my lining, and then here's my interfacing. The next step is to take my filter, which I actually have another non-woven synthetic material that I'm using for my filter, but the important thing, that what makes this mask so effective, is that there are no seams running through this. It's going to sit down in the shell. You can fold it over a little bit. It's okay as long as there's no gaps there. That should be fine. So what I've done here is I have placed the exterior of the mask inside. I placed the interfacing inside the exterior, and I've placed my filter here, and now I'm going to take my liner, and there's my center seam, line this up, and lay this down in here. This is what it should look like. There's 4 layers here. Exterior, interfacing, filter, interior. And I'm gonna sew a line across all of this to stitch it all together in a single stitch. Okay, so now what I've done is I have gone around the edges with a single stitch. I've cut off a little bit of the extra filter that was hanging out to round it up just a little bit. And then I'm gonna go around the edges with this double fold bias tape. Okay, so now I've attached my bias tape around the edges, and the next thing I'm gonna do is attach elastic. Okay, so now what I've done is I've sewn my elastic, and right now I have rubber that I'm using. I'm out of banded elastic at the moment, so I'm using whatever I can find. So I put the elastic at each of the darts on the sides. That is just a zigzag stitch to secure it in place, and I have knots on the end. But you know, if you have to use ribbon or whatever to tie it, then that's going to be fine too. Just make sure those are going to be long enough. So here is my completed mask, and I'm gonna bend the wire on the nose to contour it a little bit closer to my face so that I don't have any gaps here for air. So I have a nice sealer on my chin, I have a nice sealer on my nose. And that's it. It's gonna be machine washable on normal cycle, but because of the non-movement interfacing, you're not going to want to put it in the dryer. You're gonna want to air dry it, but you should be able to get it pretty clean by putting it in the washing machine. And then it took me about 5 minutes to sew. It's actually really easy once you get into the groove of it, so good luck.